You send a text. They don't reply immediately. And suddenly, you're spiraling. Did I say something wrong? Are they mad at me? Should I have worded it differently? Maybe I shouldn't have said anything at all. Sound familiar? If your brain feels like it's running a marathon 24/7, analyzing every decision, replaying every conversation, and catastrophizing every situation, you're not alone. Studies suggest that up to 73% of adults between ages 25 to 35 identify as overthinkers. That's nearly 3 out of 4 people. But here's what's fascinating. Overthinking isn't just a bad habit. There's actual psychology and neuroscience behind why some people's brains work this way. So if you're someone who overthinks everything, or you know someone who does, this video is for you. Let's dive into what's really happening in the overthinker's brain. First, let's get clear on what we're talking about. Overthinking, also called rumination in psychology, is defined as repetitive negative thinking about yourself, your emotions, personal concerns, and life experiences. But here's the key. It's not just thinking a lot. It's a specific pattern that has 2 main forms. Rumination. This is when you dwell on the past. You replay conversations, analyze mistakes, dissect social interactions, and ask yourself, what if and why did I? Questions that have no real answers. Worry. This is when you obsess over the future. You imagine worst-case scenarios, anticipate disasters that haven't happened, and create problems in your mind before they exist in reality. Research has found that overthinking is characterized as intrusive, repetitive, and uncontrollable. It's not that overthinkers want to think this way. Their brains get stuck in loops they can't easily escape from. And here's what makes it especially difficult. Many overthinkers genuinely believe their rumination will lead to valuable insights or solutions. They think if they just analyze the problem enough, they'll figure it out. But research shows this almost never happens. Instead, overthinking and negative affect reciprocally worsen each other over time, creating a cycle where overthinking triggers negative emotions, which increases more overthinking, which worsens the negative emotions. So what's actually happening in the brain of someone who overthinks? Recent groundbreaking research gives us some answers. A 2023 study used fMRI technology to observe brain connectivity in adolescents who overthink. They found that rumination can be reduced through an intervention called rumination-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. And this is the exciting part. The treatment caused measurable shifts in brain connectivity. Specifically, overthinking is associated with changes in how different brain regions communicate with each other. The researchers found that treatment helps patients either gain more effortless control over rumination or makes it less habitual, actually changing the physical patterns in the brain. Neuroticism, one of the big 5 personality traits, is also strongly associated with overthinking. Research shows that people high in neuroticism are more prone to negative emotions like guilt, envy, and anxiety, and they have heightened emotional reactivity. Their brains are essentially wired to be more sensitive to potential threats and negative information. There's also something called the negativity bias, a cognitive bias where our brains pay more attention to negative information than positive. For overthinkers, this bias is on overdrive. They notice, remember, and focus on negative details much more than positive ones, which fuels the overthinking cycle. And here's something really important. Overthinking isn't just in your head. It has real physiological effects. Laboratory studies have shown that prolonged rumination leads to prolonged physiological arousal and delayed recovery. Your heart rate stays elevated, your blood pressure increases, and stress hormones like cortisol remain high even after the stressor is gone. Now let's talk about the serious side of overthinking, because this is where it gets really important to understand. Rumination is not just an annoying habit, it's been identified as a causal mechanism involved in the development and maintenance of multiple psychiatric disorders. This is called a transdiagnostic pathological process, meaning it contributes to many different mental health conditions. Research shows that rumination predicts the onset of new episodes of depression, predicts the maintenance of already existing depressive symptoms, is a mediator between other risk factors and depression, is related to reduced response to treatment. But it's not just depression. Rumination prospectively predicts anxiety disorders, substance abuse, eating disorders, and PTSD symptoms following trauma. It explains prospective associations between anxiety and depressive disorders, which means it's not just a secondary effect. It may causally contribute to these conditions. And in people with OCD, ruminations about their obsessions can actually worsen the obsessive symptoms. High levels of neuroticism combined with low conscientiousness predict increased mental ill health across multiple populations. A 12-year longitudinal study found that lower conscientiousness and extroversion and higher neuroticism predicted greater stress and burnout in doctors. So if you're an overthinker struggling with your mental health, understand this. Your overthinking isn't a character flaw. It's a cognitive pattern that has real, measurable effects on your brain and your well-being. Here's something overthinkers need to understand. There's a strong connection between overthinking and perfectionism. Perfectionists tend to overthink or overanalyze situations. And here's why. Perfectionism isn't just about wanting things to be perfect. It's about having an overwhelming fear of making mistakes, being criticized, or not meeting impossibly high standards. Research shows that perfectionism is an extreme manifestation of conscientiousness that can provoke increasing neuroticism as the perfectionist's expectations aren't met. In other words, the more you demand perfection from yourself, the more anxious and overthinking you become. Studies have found that perfectionists become more neurotic and less conscientious as time passes. They appear to unravel. Their personalities become more prone to negative emotions like guilt and anxiety, and less organized and disciplined. Why? Because pursuing perfection, a goal that's intangible, fleeting, and rare, results in a higher rate of failures and a lower rate of successes. This leaves perfectionists more likely to neurotically stew about their imperfections. Many thoughts associated with perfectionism lie in a cognitive distortion called all or nothing thinking. I always need to give my best. I cannot make any mistakes. I should have done better. These thought patterns aren't based on reality, but they drive relentless overthinking. Perfectionism has increased substantially since 1990, meaning millennials and Gen Z struggle with it more than previous generations. Between social media showcasing perfect lives and a dog-eat-dog culture that emphasizes rank and performance, young people today are surrounded by too many yardsticks to measure their success and failure. And all of this perfectionism? It fuels overthinking like gasoline on a fire. One of the most frustrating aspects of overthinking is what researchers call analysis paralysis, when excessive thinking actually prevents you from taking action. A study titled "Can't Quite Commit Rumination and Uncertainty" found something fascinating. Ruminators expressed less satisfaction and confidence with their own plans than non-ruminators. They were also less likely to commit to the plans they generated. Why? Because self-focused rumination inhibits instrumental behavior by increasing uncertainty, resulting in further rumination and behavioral paralysis. Think about it. You need to make a decision. You analyze every possible outcome. You consider what could go wrong. You imagine how people might judge you. You weigh pros and cons obsessively, and then you can't decide. The overthinking has made you so uncertain that you're paralyzed. This creates a vicious cycle. Uncertainty leads to overthinking, which increases uncertainty, which leads to more overthinking, which prevents action, which increases anxiety, which triggers more overthinking. For overthinkers, even small choices can feel monumental. Choosing a restaurant for dinner becomes an existential crisis. Deciding what to wear takes an hour. Responding to a text requires drafting multiple versions. And here's the cruel irony. While overthinkers believe all this analysis will help them make better decisions, research shows it often leads to worse outcomes. The mental exhaustion, the decision fatigue, The constant second guessing, all of it undermines your ability to think clearly and act confidently. Overthinking doesn't just happen in isolation. It has a massive impact on your relationships and social life. Research shows that induced rumination leads to impaired interpersonal functioning. When you're stuck in your head, you're not fully present with other people. You're analyzing instead of connecting. Here's what this looks like in real life. After social interactions, you replay every conversation. Why did I say that? Did they think I was weird? I shouldn't have laughed so loud. That comment came out wrong. You dissect facial expressions, tone of voice, pauses in conversation, looking for hidden meanings that probably don't exist. Before social interactions, you script conversations in your head. You prepare for every possible scenario. You worry about awkward silences, saying something stupid, or being judged. By the time you actually show up, you're exhausted. During social interactions, you're so busy monitoring yourself, how you're coming across, whether you're saying the right things, if people like you, that you're not actually engaged. You're performing instead of being. This creates what psychologists call post-event processing, obsessive analysis of social interactions after they're over. You lie awake at night cringing about things you said hours or days ago. You convince yourself you've ruined relationships or made people think less of you. And here's the devastating part. All this overthinking actually damages your relationships. People can sense when you're not fully present. Your anxiety becomes contagious. Your need for reassurance becomes exhausting. Your constant apologizing and self-deprecation becomes uncomfortable for others. Overthinkers often struggle with what's called the intimacy paradox. They desperately want connection, but their overthinking creates barriers to authentic intimacy. So why do some people overthink while others don't? The answer is complex, involving both nature and nurture. Genetics. Research shows that both rumination and neuroticism are moderately heritable. About 32 to 46% of the variance is explained by genetic factors. Studies on twins revealed that the relationship between perfectionism and neuroticism is largely explained by common genetic factors. So if your parents are overthinkers, there's a decent chance you inherited some predisposition toward it. Childhood experiences, growing up in an overly demanding, critical, or chaotic environment can mold a developing mind into one prone to anxiety and overthinking. If your parents ruled with harsh criticism, demanded perfection, or created an unpredictable environment, those early experiences likely shaped your thinking patterns. Research shows that controlling and critical parents foster the development of perfectionism, which in turn drives overthinking. Children learn that mistakes are catastrophic, that they must constantly monitor their behavior, and that they can't trust their own judgment. Personality traits. Certain personality characteristics make people more susceptible to overthinking. High neuroticism, emotional reactivity and sensitivity, high conscientiousness combined with perfectionism, low extroversion, more internal focus, analytical thinking style, breaking down every detail, life experiences, traumatic events, significant life changes, and high-stress situations can trigger or worsen overthinking patterns. A difficult breakup, job loss, or other major stressor can shift someone's thinking patterns toward more rumination. Cultural factors. We live in a culture that rewards analysis, planning, and achievement. Social media creates constant comparison. The pressure to be productive and successful is relentless. All of this creates fertile ground for overthinking to flourish. Here's something important. Not all deep thinking is overthinking. There's a difference between productive reflection and destructive rumination. Productive thinking has a clear purpose or goal, leads to insights or solutions, has a natural endpoint, feels manageable and within your control, results in action or acceptance. Overthinking, rumination, goes in circles without reaching conclusions, focuses on problems without solutions, continues indefinitely without resolution, feels intrusive and uncontrollable, results in paralysis and increased distress. Some research even suggests that certain types of rumination might have adaptive functions. A certain amount of reflection can aid problem solving, help process difficult experiences, and lead to personal growth. The key is distinguishing between reflection and rumination. If you're thinking about something to understand it better or solve a problem, and that thinking feels productive and ends naturally, that's healthy. If you're stuck in a loop of negative thoughts that increase your distress and don't lead anywhere, that's overthinking. So how do you actually stop overthinking? Research gives us some evidence-based strategies. 1. Rumination-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, RFCBT. The 2023 study we mentioned showed that RFCBT can reduce overthinking and actually change brain connectivity. This therapy specifically targets rumination patterns and teaches you to recognize and interrupt them. 2. Mindfulness and present moment awareness. Research consistently shows that mindfulness training reduces overthinking and emotional spirals. When you practice staying present, you're less likely to get lost in past regrets or future worries. 3. Scheduled worry time. Psychologists recommend scheduling specific times for rumination, then setting the thoughts aside until then. This works because by the time your worry appointment arrives, the issue often isn't a problem anymore. 4. Action over analysis. Remember, self-focused rumination inhibits action. The antidote is to move from thinking to doing. Make a specific plan and then consider the matter settled for the time being. Taking action, even imperfect action, breaks the overthinking cycle. 5. Challenge. All or nothing thinking. Those perfectionist thoughts like, I always need to give my best and I cannot make any mistakes, they're not based in reality. Practice recognizing these cognitive distortions and replacing them with more realistic thoughts. 6. Redirect to positive memories. Research shows that remembering similar past experiences that turned out well can end rumination. Instead of fixating on a bad grade, remember another time when something similar worked out fine. 7. External processing. Talk to someone about what you're overthinking. But here's the caveat. Make sure you're problem solving, not just rehashing the same worries. If talking becomes another form of rumination, it won't help. 8. Reduce stimulation. Since overthinking often involves sensory and cognitive overload, reducing external stimulation can help. This might mean limiting social media, reducing multitasking, or creating quiet time in your day. 9. Self-compassion over perfection. Research shows that practicing self-compassion, treating yourself with the kindness you'd offer a friend, reduces the harsh self-criticism that fuels overthinking. 10. Professional support. If overthinking is severely impacting your daily life, interfering with work or relationships, or causing significant distress, consider therapy. There's no shame in getting help for something that has real neurological and psychological roots. Before we wrap up, let's talk about something important. Overthinkers often have genuine strengths that come with their analytical minds. Yes, overthinking can be destructive, but the same brain that overthinks is often deeply empathetic. You notice subtle emotional cues others miss, thoughtful and considerate. You think carefully about how your actions affect others. Detail-oriented and thorough. You catch mistakes and see patterns. Conscientious and responsible. You take commitment seriously. Creative and imaginative. Your mind makes unexpected connections. The goal isn't to stop thinking or become less analytical. The goal is to channel that analytical power toward productive thinking instead of destructive rumination. Some of the world's greatest thinkers, artists, and problem solvers were overthinkers. The difference is they learned to direct their mental energy toward creation and problem solving rather than letting it spiral into anxiety and paralysis. So here's what we've learned. People who overthink everything aren't just worriers or anxious people. They have specific brain connectivity patterns that can be changed with targeted therapy, genetic predispositions toward neuroticism, and emotional reactivity, often experience childhood environments that shaped their thinking patterns. personality traits like perfectionism that fuel the overthinking cycle, a cognitive pattern that's been identified as a transdiagnostic risk factor for multiple mental health conditions. Up to 73% of young adults identify as overthinkers. If you're one of them, you're in massive company. And more importantly, you're not broken. Your brain is doing what it thinks is protecting you, analyzing threats, preparing for problems, trying to control uncertain situations. The problem is that this protection mechanism has gone into overdrive. But here's the hopeful part. Overthinking is changeable. Brain research shows that targeted interventions can literally change your brain's connectivity patterns. Therapy works. Mindfulness works. Taking action works. You don't have to live trapped in your own mind. The spiral can be interrupted. The paralysis can be overcome. The constant mental marathon can slow to a manageable pace. Understanding that overthinking has real psychological and neurological foundations, it's not just a bad habit you should get over, is the first step. The second step is choosing strategies that work for you and committing to the process of change. So whether you're an overthinker trying to find peace or someone trying to understand the overthinker in your life, now you know. It's not about being dramatic or difficult. It's about having a brain that's wired a certain way, shaped by certain experiences, and stuck in certain patterns. But those patterns, they can change. Now I'm curious. Are you an overthinker? And if so, which aspect of this resonates most with you? Let me know in the comments. No judgment here, just understanding. If you found this video helpful, hit that like button and subscribe for more psychology content that explains why we are the way we are. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.